This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of July 2018, Mountain Glass is offering their Boro sale, Chinese rod and tube, color and clear at 40% off. No coupon code is required. All you have to do is go in there and place your order, and it automatically adjusts the pricing. And for all you beautiful soft glass nerds out there, they have their double helix sale going on right now. The coupon code is DHELIX, that's DHELIX. You'll receive 15% off their sale. If you received an email from them, you will see in their email it said 40% off. That was a typo on there. It's actually 15% off. And again, just use the coupon code DHELIX. And for any other questions, comments, or concerns, updated sales on torches, kilns, and their monthly updates on new color coming in, just go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. So until next time, any questions, comments, or concerns for them, just give them a call, or you can go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 197. This is your host, Jason Michael. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And I still can't get over how many episodes we have. 197. Holy crap. We got the big 200 coming up soon. I've got some plans in the works for that episode. It's a pretty big milestone for podcasts in general. Just kind of to get this started here on a little sidetrack. Average podcasts out there usually get about 5 episodes in. And if they get past the 5th episode, typically they continue to get going and going and going, like this one has gone. And otherwise, they tend to become part of the podcast graveyard. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are just floating around that started off strong and then disappeared or stopped altogether, including ones in this genre that we have here in the glass. So definitely appreciate everybody who's been tuning in and downloading episodes and commenting and writing me and been guests on the show, giving content, everything and anything that has to do with this episode and this podcast in general. I really do and do. I mean, with the bottom of my heart, appreciate everything you all have done for me. It's why I continue to do the show. It's why I continue to bust my ass on a daily basis to become a better artist myself, so I can then pass the knowledge on to you guys. And something I've realized, I guess kind of as I've gone through my days of doing what I'm doing, I haven't really done a lot of content in terms of actual glass techniques and talking about certain things. I know in a visual medium of glass blowing and glass art in general, it's really hard to describe and talk about techniques over an audio source. Which is why I've been doing my videos and what have you, and I finally am up to speed on a lot of the content I've been wanting to create, which I will tell you has been a huge relief. It's been a year in the making, and it's just been one thing after another. Something I really found that I had to do, which is what here I am on a total side note, but this is just things I'm just passing on to you that you can potentially use in your life. But when I went through my divorce, it's been a year now officially. And moved out here to Orlando, closer to work. Not only did I move away from a place that I grew up and lived in for 40 plus years, and then moved to an area that pretty much unfamiliar with, except for going to work. Coming in here and getting settled in, I thought I could continue to handle everything I was already doing, and the reality of it was that I couldn't. Going through the changes of my life through the divorce, having to understand that, I thought I was all happy-go-lucky, blah, 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 and really deep down inside I was sad and hurt and depressed and heartbroken, and it took about 6 months for me to really step back and look at my reality and my emotional state that I was in and, where I was, I guess, in life. and all the things I was still juggling. And really what it came down to is I needed to just drop all the balls and then start picking them up one at a time, which is what I've done. And a lot of the things that I've cut back in life were things that I enjoyed doing, but they weren't necessarily things that were giving me growth, I guess, in this space, because I definitely have a growth mindset, and every day I want to be better in who I am. This time next year, I hope, and I better be a completely different person. The same person I am, I guess, in a sense, but in terms of growth, I want to make sure that I'm in a different space, in a better space, in a sense. And don't get me wrong, I'm super happy. Life is awesome right now. There are parts of life that I'm still getting together. My finances are still getting together. My budget's, getting just kind of my routines together and that kind of jazz. But again, I'm implementing and adding things a little bit at a time back into my life. My workouts have been one of the things that I have not, and I do feel, because I'm not exercising like I was last year when I was like gung-ho, jump roping and what have you. It really has definitely affected my mental space in a bad way. I know with my ADD and all that kind of shit that I deal with, exercise and fitness is and has been and was the number one key for me to deal with those things, besides the meds I take on a daily basis, which I hate to take, but it's just one of those necessary evils in a sense. And I know there's controversy and we can go back and forth about this topic, but that being said, fitness is one of those things that over the last couple of weeks I've really noticed, just in a physical feeling, that I got to get this back in my life. I've packed on about added like 15 pounds, I think, back since this time last year, and which isn't a bad thing, but it's still, I don't feel comfortable because I feel all soft and saggy and I don't feel tight and fit like I was last year. And also in my headspace, it's definitely something that I need to not only purge and release the day's negative energy or the built up frustrations or all that stuff that we carry around, but also just feels good just to sweat and hurt a little bit, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, kind of thing. And that's the part of my mental space that I'm at now, is knowing that I just got to start it. Like anything else in life we do, people always ask me, how'd you get, learn how to blow glass? And I always tell them I just did it. It's just things you have to do. To learn, you got to just do it. And so the physical fitness aspect is coming back into my life. And that being said, I'm going to be starting just a little, I guess, a conversation more so on this show, and as well as on our Facebook page, which I haven't really been active on Facebook. It's just kind of another side note here. Facebook's been one of those things that's been a huge distraction. I post on Instagram. Instagram's my main source of my content and talking with you all besides this podcast. But I do want to start really focusing on the Facebook groups that I've created, not only for this podcast, but also for my Wise Guy Institute online classes that I have a couple students in who have been amazing and are on pause right now until I get all the content done. But that being said, I'm going to be more active, and one of the things I want to do is kind of start somewhat of a fitness group, kind of a challenge in a sense. I'm still a part of the Zen Dude community. They were Zen Dude Fitness. Now they are the Jump Rope Dudes. They've gone through a little bit of a change in their branding. But the same two guys, Brandon and Dan, are incredible. And our community that we have on their Facebook page has just grown exponentially. It's amazing. And to see the growth in people, not only physically, but also in an emotional state. And I know a lot of us out there as artists, we do deal with, emotional things, depression, anxiety, stress, ADD, all kind of shit we all deal with. And fitness and exercise is one thing that will help you get through the day and help clear your mind and not only help you feel better in a mental state, but also physically feel better. Because I'll tell you what, there ain't nothing worse than trying to bend over to tie your shoes and feeling your gut pushing into your diaphragm and cutting your breath off, It gets to that point where it's like, yeah, I think it is time for me to start exercising. And so I'm not at that point right now physically, but I am at the point where I do need to start exercising. So that being said, stay tuned. I'm going to be trying to figure out how to go about this. If you'd be interested in doing this with me, it's a real simple thing. It's just, I'm going to be sharing content from the Zen Dude guys. I'm going to be talking to them here soon because they've actually been implementing a little program to help us who are part of the group start jump rope fitness groups outside of the community, and something I've been wanting to do since I've started jump roping. And so there you go. So stay tuned for that. I know it's summertime, it's hot as shit, But we all need some exercise and fitness in our life. And blown glass, as physical as it is, the cardiovascular side of our fitness goes to the wayside when it comes to blown glass. You know, you get your flow state, you breathe shallow, you don't really breathe deep, you don't breathe heavy, and next thing you know, you're climbing a flight of stairs and you're out of breath, which sucks. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking more about that as well, because it's important. So today's episode, now that we're back on track here after all my rambling, is featuring Noah Louden. Noah's been blowing glass now as a glass artist for about 3 years. And this conversation we have is really interesting. This conversation really didn't have any kind of path to it necessarily. We talked all kind of stuff about his career and where he's gone, but really what we talked about was kind of the deep inside thoughts of just repetition and muscle memory and practice. He has a whole completely different perspective in glass, which I think is pretty awesome. Something that I haven't really had yet on the show, which is just his perspective. He's got a very architecturally engineering kind of style of perspective on looking at things, and kind of a common sense approach as well. I tend to overthink a lot when it comes to my work, and which can be what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. There's a word I'm looking for, but it definitely keeps me from just pumping out work, I guess, in a sense. Or if I'm trying to be creative, I tend to overthink things. But he really does break things down into a really common sense perspective. And you'll hear me a couple times react to some things that he says. I'm like, damn, I didn't think about it that way. So it's a pretty cool episode. He definitely shares a lot of knowledge. And the biggest takeaway that I have myself, which I like to share takeaways, is just just going into just practice, not being afraid to just buy a case of glass and pull a bunch of points, or spend 3 days or 4 days just learning how to do cup tops or flared feet. You know, just little simple techniques that you have to practice over and over and over and over again. And if you're just doing production all day, even though you're repeating that step in the process, you're not really repeating specific technique and steps. You're just kind of going through a bunch of techniques and steps. And if you break them all down into individual steps and processes, like popping holes and pushing bowls, making little like 9.5 mil slides was something I did for years, and that taught me so much in terms of how to blow an even bubble, how to make an even wall thickness, how to pop a hole and center it into a bubble without using a blow hose, how to push a bowl nice and even so that way the dish, as you push it, doesn't touch the inside walls of the bubble, make sure it's deep enough, all that kind of stuff. Those little simple techniques are just things you have to break down one step at a time, which, again, these are the kind of things I want to talk about more as the show goes and progresses as we hit episode 200. So we had a fun conversation, and again, we kind of went all over the place. Him and I have, for like the last 2 weeks, we had a date for the recording, and I just recently upgraded my phone due to Apple's constant bullshit. My phone basically just stopped working, and so I had to go get a new phone. And with this new iPhone 8 that I got, it doesn't have the ear jack plug, but I have an adapter for it. I used the adapter, and he couldn't hear me on his side. I could hear him, but he couldn't hear me. Wasn't sure what it was, so we tried a couple different things. It just didn't work, so we put it off for a couple days. That didn't work either, so then I brought all my equipment inside, thinking maybe I needed to buy a new mixer again, which I didn't have to, thank goodness, because it was just my plug or my cord for my microphone wasn't working properly. So I got that taken care of and fixed, and we recorded. I also recorded this for the first time on 2 separate tracks. Typically when I do my audio recording, I run the audio from the guest and myself into my mixer. I try to adjust the volume so both sides are level, and then that goes into my digital recorder. Well, this time I recorded both tracks individually into my digital recorder. I am through my mixer. He's just straight into the digital recorder. That way the audio is in 2 separate tracks, which is how professional podcasters and music people do everything when it comes to audio. Something I've wanted to do for a while and just got lazy and just didn't do it. And so this time our audio tracks are separate, and before I post this up, I'm going to get the edit done and get our levels adjusted and perfect, because I've noticed the last few episodes I've had, the guests have been a little bit quieter than me. And when I'm listening to it, it sounds like we're both the same, but when I go back and listen to the actual edit itself of the show, they're definitely not the same. And I don't want to have you constantly going back and forth and adjusting your volume as you're listening to this. So yeah, so there you go. Enough of that rambling. A couple of little house cleaning things going on here. I wanted to let you guys know that the upcoming issue of the Flow magazine, which I'm super pumped about, is their functionals episode, I keep wanting to call it an episode. It's the functionals issue. That's going to be coming out here. I don't have the date exactly. But that being said, the 4 artists that are featured in this issue is Banjo, Marble Slinger, Joe Peters, and Salt. They're having all kind of cool content in this one. I'm also being featured again in this next issue on the 5-part series on marketing and distributing your glass. The last one they published was the very first time I'd ever been published in a magazine in terms of editorial stuff, which I was super excited about. And they basically had asked if I wanted to do my 5-part series on So You Want to Be a Glassblower. And it's all about marketing and selling and getting started. So I'm not really sure which part of that series is going to be in the next one, but I do know that it will be in there. And again, they have all kind of fun tutorials, photo by photo information, just a really amazing content. And if you ever want to be a contributor to the Flow magazine, they do take offers, and people want submissions, I should say. Anything you think you could teach, you do have to do a photographic step-by-step tutorial kind of setup to make it happen. You can also record a video and then just take out snippets of snapshots of each step of the process, in a sense, and be able to describe what's going on. Or if you have like an editorial post or a lesson you've learned or just some kind of philosophical conversation, anything that has to do with this world of glass, they are all about sharing. So you can contact Maureen James over at the Flow magazine. I'll have her link in the show notes for that, just so you know. And super excited for this next issue. The last one they had was the marbles one, and it was amazing seeing all the stuff in there. I'm blown away by just what is being created in glass nowadays. I know with the Instagrams and all the stuff going on, we have access to so many artists to see what's going on out there, and it's just mind blowing to see what's going on. It's inspiring. Sometimes it's demotivating because it's like, okay, I'm ready to hang my torch up now. It's crazy. It's kind of funny, and that's kind of how I've honestly how I've felt in terms of the pipe world. I'm a piper at heart, but as I've mentioned in the past few episodes, I've taken a break from making pipes for right now. And by the time I probably get back into making pipes again, the technology, the techniques, the things being done, say in a year from now, are going to be night and day different. And I'm going to be probably a little bit left behind. I might have to contact my brother and hang out with him for a little bit because he's a badass. If you haven't followed my brother, he goes by Lurk the World. He's also JB Glass on Instagram. I'll put his links in the show notes for you guys. But he's been doing glass now for about 7 years, I think, something around there. And I got him started early on with his foundation and technique and stuff. And then he's been busting his ass, working crazy hours, taking lots of classes, and just educating himself. And is making a name for himself out there in the world of glass. And I couldn't be more proud to see his success and what he's been doing and finding his little voice and his little characters that he's doing. So it's pretty badass. And just got to say, love my brother and happy to have another family member here in my world as a glass blower. It's pretty cool. So, so anyways, I'm going to get out of here. I do want to say a real quick shout out and thank you. So I want to give a big shout out before we go here and thank you to 2 different guys that have been become members of the Wise Ass community as a Patreon member. Nipper Sink Glass, Randy, he's our newest contributor, and also Soda Rest, Dan out there. These 2 guys have recently, Dan actually joined the Wise Ass community back in September, and Randy just recently here last month. And if you guys want to help contribute to the show, just for as little as $1 a month, it's only $12 a year, you can help support this content. I'm taking this money, everything that is being contributed to the show through Patreon is going right back into the show to upgrade equipment, to help pay for expenses for traveling. I'm going to do everything I can possible to get up to Melt this year, even for the 2-day spectator card, so I can get some interviews in, shake some hands, kiss some babies, and get to know all the guys and gals that are going to be up there doing this amazing event. Having Kevin Beecher on recently talking about Melt, it was inspiring and really lit a fire into my ass to really get myself out there even more so in the community and really get to know everybody, because I could talk to you all day on this microphone here, but I want to be able to just talk to you all in person as well. So if you want to become a contributor to this podcast, again, for as little as $1 a month, you can go on to patreon.com/wiseguy radio. I have 2 videos I've already created for the Patreon members. If you're in a $5 a month or higher level, you'll have access to these videos. They're real simple tutorial stuff. The first 2 I have up there. One of them is how to make a glass rod rest on your bench out of your scraps, and then another one is just a basic point pulling tutorial that I have. But these 2 videos are just the beginnings of all the content, little techniques I'm going to be sharing for the Patreon members. And again, for $12 a year, you won't have access to it. But if you do $5 a month, and that's $60 a year, figure it's a cup of coffee, basically every month. You'll have access to some pretty cool content, some videos, just little basic lamp working techniques I'm going to be sharing. And these will all kind of be leading towards the real launch of the Wise Guy Institute and all the online courses and classes I'm doing. Also, I've contacted Mike Souza. If you guys don't know who Mike Souza is, he is a master scientific glass blower. He is part of the International Scientific Glass Blowing Society. They just recently had their conference, and he is also the glass blower up at Princeton University, where the scientists and the teachers and the professors and what have you, they go to him to create apparatuses for all their experiments and whatever. He's been a lamp worker or scientific glass blower for 30 plus years now, maybe going 40 years. He is an amazing wealth of knowledge in our community, and is all about sharing the knowledge. So him and I, last time he was on the show, and I'll have his episode link in the show notes for you, we had talked about doing a Mythbusters kind of Q&A session. So if you have any questions regarding anything in glass, whether it's talking about devitrification, anything, flame chemistry, glass chemistry, anything you could think of that you have a question about that's been bothering you, or something you want to know about, or just have a question for Mike, hit me up in an email. My email is wiseguymedia@gmail.com. Definitely send me an email, because I'm going to be putting together a list. Probably we'll do about 10 to 15 questions. I'll pick out of all the questions for him, and then we'll have him on the show, and that'll be after our 200th episode. So this, again, we're going to be starting to kind of gear into, besides doing the interviews, more content relatable to blowing glass, which I'm excited about. So there you guys go. That's all of the housekeeping for now. So make sure you guys, if you have not yet subscribed to the show, you're listening to it now, so maybe you have, you can. If you have not yet, you can just go to iTunes. Whether you have on your computer, you can get the iTunes on there, or if you have an iPhone, obviously you have the app. If you have a Droid or any kind of other phone, you can go on Google Play, iHeartRadio. You can also download Stitcher and listen to it on there. You can also directly listen to the show off the website. It's wiseguymedia.com/podcast. And I'll have that link as well in the show notes for you. And until next time, make sure y'all are staying hydrated. It is hot as hell out there. It has been 103 to 106 degrees here in Florida in terms of what it feels like. Not the actual temperature, but it feels like it's actually more like the surface of the sun, especially when I worked in the hot shop the other day. I'll tell you, I don't recommend working in the hot shop in the middle of the summer. So, but I didn't have a choice because it's my job. But anyways, I'm rambling. I'm getting the hell out of here. Y'all have a beautiful day. Happy melting. We'll talk to you next time on the Wise Guy Radio Show, and enjoy this interview here with Noah Louden. Enjoy. Talk to y'all soon. Love you so much. Peace. What's going on, Noah? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. It's been a fucking hell of a time getting you on here. Just on my end with technology here, I'm learning how to deal with. So I appreciate all the patience in the world, man. It's been fun talking to you off the air, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying to get the show going. So yeah, here we are a week later, and we're now recording, and it works. Everything's fine. So that being said, before I get all out of track and ramble on here, let's get fired up here, man. And if you want to share us how you got started and were introduced to the flame.
Sure. So in the middle of 2015, I believe it was just about May, I was at college at a school called Hampshire College in Massachusetts, in this town called Amherst. I was taking a lot of different classes, and I was really, really fascinated with like all the culture and the studies I was into. And I was working on the farm there at the school, and we had a farm festival going on one day. And after work, I guess I just kind of wandered over to this farm festival. There were vegetables and crafts and just random things being sold. I can't really remember exactly that well, but my friend Sky was set up at a booth there, and he had all sorts of like little mushroom pendants and implosion pendants with like like amber purple frit, where it looks like fire kind of stretched to amber purple frit, little implosion droplets and stuff. And I was really stunned that I was just meeting this guy. So that's kind of where my introduction to borosilicate was.
Okay.
I met this guy named Sky, who's now my very good friend. He was kind of my teacher and my colleague, coming up in my first couple of years working with the medium. And it took quite a few months for me to kind of gain the confidence to hang out with him and his contemporaries that make pipes or made pipes at the school at the time, because I don't know, I wasn't really like that confident of a person in general. I was confident in some ways, but like I was really just kind of nervous around like these guys that were making these really cool pieces of glass, right?
Yeah, totally
I saw the
intimidating.
work and the flames, and it was in the shop of the school, which also included welding and people making bicycle frames or sculptures and things like that. And so I mean, I had welded before, and that's kind of similar, right? If you got a hand torch, like a Smith hand torch is pretty similar to welding in some ways.
Yeah.
If you had like a piece of 8mm rod or something in your hand, it's kind of like TIG welding, kind of networking and things. But anyways, long story short, I got to know Sky and his friend, and they introduced me to the flame one day, and it was just kind of like a quick lesson, like here's a little chunk of glass, and here's how to spin a marble. And then they just got right back to work. They didn't really walk me through it or like hold my hand. It was really just like, hey dude, here's how to turn on this national, or this it was just a single port, or not a single port, single stage burner, very basic bench burner. And they had like 8 or 10 of them for teaching there, and then a couple of Bethlehems. And
Nice.
but yeah, I felt like I had pretty minimal instruction at first, and I had to kind of like scrape my way to figure out techniques and stuff for a while, because I didn't know that other people were blowing glass outside of this school in like a bigger scene at all. It was just like me and a couple of friends at the time. So it took me a while to understand Instagram and how huge it was.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because like I hear it all the time. Like people are like, "Oh, this is a dying art." And I'm like, I'm in a group with like 15,000 glass blowers, so it was a dying art, but now it's
Yeah, and it can feel like it. I meet people even here in Eugene who are just like, who's banjo, or who's this, or who's that, and they're glass blowers that they should know who these people are.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how they're like living in a rock in their studio or under a rock.
Yeah.
It's crazy how you can, like, at such a young age, I feel like a lot of people are going on the internet and investigating things, whereas older craftsmen are set in their ways, and it takes them a little bit longer to hop on like the ways that we are now selling and marketing our work, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally, man. It's easy to get stuck in your cave. Like, I know I did it for years.
yeah,
You know,
I
like
mean,
I thought forever
you can
1 inch
make great
heavy wall.
money just selling to shops, and a lot of guys just don't need to, build any sort of social media presence, or
Right,
they
right.
never felt the need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my friends were working on these wrap and rake kind of style hammers and push bubblers and really cool things that I just was blown away by, and especially just the color from fume was really, really intriguing to me. So yeah, I just kind of spent more and more time in the shop at school and less time paying attention to my schoolwork that I should have been paying attention to, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I was at such a great school that it was hard to justify, kind of staying up all night trying to make some cool piece and then not, putting my best effort into my schoolwork. So I had to leave school in order to pursue this craft. And I have to say it's been one of the better decisions I've made in my life. Deciding to go forth in exploring this medium and kind of recognizing what's best for me and using my money as I earn it, rather than taking out huge student loans, which I did, and not really understanding what you're getting into as a young guy. I mean, it's really crazy to me that 17, 18-year-olds are taking out student loans. I wasn't mature enough to really understand what that meant.
Yeah, dude, tell me about it. I know, same here.
Right?
It's crazy, like seeing people that are graduating college with like $250,000 in debt.
I'm happy to admit that I was in that same position. It's just not easy.
No,
you're
I did the same
young
thing.
and under pressure to pick a school and
Yep.
figure out what you want to do with your life. And but yeah, I mean, I just happened upon glass blowing so fortunately at like the right time. Gained some really close friends who I felt like I could trust, and without that, I feel like I wouldn't have necessarily had much of a direction in my final studies as a senior at school, which a lot of people struggle with. A lot of my contemporaries have struggled with that direction of what they want to study, in long term, right? So,
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I feel so much gratitude just for the medium, for the whole community. Seriously, I'm blown away by it every single day that I wake up. It's nuts.
Yeah, tell me about it, dude. It's
Right.
it's amazing. Like I say, it's when I interview like other older artists that have been doing this as long as I have. We talk about it. It's like it's incredible to see where things were when we had like 12 colors, and now it's like.
Yeah.
It's
Now it's hard to choose which color you want, right?
Yeah, dude, and it's like the sky's the limit nowadays. I mean, literally, like it's endless possibilities and things we can do. We still have limitations, but if you understand the science, then which is being taught so much now too, then you really have this complete understanding. And I think one of the things with glass I find too is like you really get like this intimate kind of relationship with this material because you have to like really focus on it. You have to understand if you want to be able to work it the way you want to work it, So you really like.
Oh yeah.
Like like yourself, like obviously you listened to yourself. You knew the direction that you should have gone in, which you did, because you were doing these glass things instead of studying your schoolwork.
It's kind of organic the way it happens. It's not even necessarily something that you choose to. A lot of the time, it's natural, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. You get that bug.
It's the people that you end up spending time with and respecting, and looking up to, and saying, I want to be like them someday. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so totally agree, dude.
But I think it's cool though, man. Is that you listened to like yourself. Like obviously you had a direction that you wanted to go and you weren't sure, and then you found it. And that's like
huge gamble, definitely, right?
Yeah. And usually the ones that are people that are successful in life are those that follow their passion in a sense. But the important part with you is that you found it. You found it at a young age as well, so you can really develop these skills.
I'm not in a definite position or direction, right? I have a general direction. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
You're learning the material.
exactly. Yeah. It's all learning.
Yeah.
And like a field of study.
Yeah, every day.
To explore.
It's amazing. So, like, it's early on, so, you make a marble your first time around. Like, were you able to make a nice round ball, or was it a blob of shit?
Oh, it was extremely difficult. I think that was part of why at the beginning I feel like the first year or so it wasn't really like I was going to the studio and feeling really great about like what I was making. A lot of the time it was pretty embarrassing, going in there and trying to make something in front of these guys who knew way more than I did, and like just being like a little runt. And like asking questions when you can, but like also not really even knowing how to ask a question in a lot of cases.
Oh, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, I felt that in a lot of cases, and so it took me a while to, get comfortable with everybody in the shop, and them being comfortable with me working late in the evening and knowing what I was into, and kind of feeling like I was a little bit more supported, even though you're never really going to be supported as a pipe maker at a liberal arts college. Nobody really sees you as like the prized possession of the school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the quote unquote artist.
yeah. I mean, like people loved our work there, but it was difficult to get recognition sometimes.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah, I dealt with that shit for a long time. Like even just amongst other glass artists, whether it was a hot shop or a fuser or something like that. It's like as soon as I mentioned I was a lamp worker, they didn't even ask if I did beads. They were like, "Oh, you're a pipe maker? The fuck? I want to talk to you." Kind of shit. And every year I would find the same artists and introduce myself and shake their hand and got to get them to know who I was. Not that I was a pipe maker, even though I was,
right on.
But
Yeah.
So I think it's important, even though we have this stigma out there. It's just to break past that that barrier in a sense.
Yeah, you can just be a professional and mature person, and it disproves that stigma.
Yeah.
Right.
And then be successful at it with like a slight chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, it seems like once you get cocky, it doesn't always work out. For some people, it does. I have a hard time when I get all cocky. It doesn't really work out. I usually like break stuff and waste material. Oh
yeah, dude, totally. Absolutely.
Because what's the point of thinking you're the shit? You got to stay humble this whole entire time. I remember Carl Termini said that every step is the money shot or whatever.
Yeah.
If you think you're the shit during every single step, I mean, there's like a level of feeling really good. You got to feel positive behind the torch, and that's a huge aspect. You don't want to bring any negativity to a space like that. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to me how some days you got to accept that your mood is not right.
Oh man, I had a guy a couple weeks ago ask me that. He's like, "You ever have any bad days?" I was like, "Dude, you have no idea."
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to adjust that day. I mean, yesterday, I broke a bunch of stuff. It was really, really hot, and I was, I don't know, probably a little bit dehydrated and also just, tired, right? So, broke a couple things, and then I make a couple things, and, in the evening it gets cooler, so sometimes it gets easier on these hotter days. You feel good once it gets colder, but other days you got to, do something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know a lot of people right now are doing the night shift, which is it sucks that you have to do that.
A lot of my shopmates do that. Yeah,
but yeah, it's got to do what you got to do. But yeah, man, it's interesting you're saying that too.
It's a great time. It's I think it's a really creative time for me. Even though the morning is super creative also. But just in terms of at 3 a.m, nobody else is really awake, and it's the collective consciousness is a little bit more barren. You have your own, and you can make your own little moment. And I don't know. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, dude. Right? It's an interesting philosophy because
if you're in a busy shop and everybody's yelling and.
Well, I'm even thinking beyond that, dude. Think
chaos,
about. I'm
right?
thinking the space outside of the world in general, the county you're in. Everybody's awake.
Yeah, everybody's awake. And
energy's
so
going.
Energy, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's energy bouncing around, and you don't have to think about it as much when everybody's not awake.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
I don't know anybody in Australia, so.
Yeah, it might just be yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
I
interesting.
mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't really make any sense.
Hey, but I understand what you're saying though. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
It only might be only you and me that understand this conversation,
Yeah,
and
collective
nobody else.
consciousness is an amazing thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
If somebody's having a bad day in the shop, you need to either just give them the space that they feel like they deserve, or talk to them about it.
Oh, dude, we've had people leave, like ask them, like, you gotta go home or go for a walk or something like that. You know, like take a break.
Man, yeah, it's hard when people are really connected to this medium though, and they pay for these spaces. You know, like people are really passionate about this work, and I've had quite a few conversations about this kind of thing, and just how renting space with other artists, glass artists specifically, can be a tricky thing, even though it's also one of the best things in the world, because you get this social learning, and right, it's like going to school and paying a monthly fee for your space, and you get to interact with people as long as they have the time to talk. A lot of people are really busy, so they can't really talk that much. But but yeah, just like taking a class, you get to learn from everybody in the class, not just the teacher. So, you know, whoever is in your studio could really benefit you if they give you the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. Just working in the few studios that I have rented in, it's been a pure pleasure, and you know, I've had to pick and choose who I want to learn from, or, you know, spend more time with, depending on, you know, what I was doing at the time.
Yeah, man, and that's in that situation too. It's cool, like when you have like an artist come in from out of town or something like that you don't know, or maybe you do, but it changes the whole vibe. Yeah, totally. And everybody's like the entire.
Yeah,
like,
Shaka was just in town for a few days, and he was hanging out.
Oh,
and,
nice.
it was so much fun, just hanging out with Christian, and like, he's got a really fun philosophy about glass and marketing glass, and it was just a blast hanging out with him when he was collabing with Renee Patula. She makes like ice cream cones and little sculptures and stuff. Yeah, man, that was just really cool seeing them work together. And yeah, artists traveling around is a magical thing in terms of that collective consciousness thing, right? Like, they're kind of dropping off their little knowledge bits.
Yeah, completely.
Right, and it's crazy. I mean, the more you travel, the more you teach. And Yushin seems to travel a ton, and seems like he spreads a ton of knowledge. All sorts of other artists just like him, right?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and it's cool, man, because it'll change the entire studio. Like I've been in shops where we've had guys coming from out of town, and like everybody. It's not that we learn a new tech or something like that, but it just kind of like everybody gets a little evolution going on at once. It's neat seeing.
Yeah, you see things a different way. Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, dude. After 20 years, I've been working with this guy Joe Brubaker, who's like a master sculptor. The guy's phenomenal. And just a couple little detail things he showed me, like on some of my like this character I've been working on. I was having trouble with his hips, like he's kind of is in like a squatting position basically, and having his, like, you know, if you're squatting down, your knees are angled out, right, away from your body, and then your feet kind of come in a little closer to like your ass, you know, where you stabilize yourself. So trying to design and develop this character and learn that sculptural technique of making the hip to like the calf muscle area and then the foot all in this angle, looking clean on both sides and symmetrical, you know. And he's like, you just do it like this, and I'm like, that's real easy, Joe, right? And he's like, oh yeah, man, just do it like this. He showed me like 10 times in a row, and so I'd sit down and do it, and it really took me over. Oh, dude, it took me so much time. Like, I was using a GTT too to do it. Like, I was learning a new character on a torch that I haven't used really much.
Yeah, some things really click that you can watch people do, and then other things it takes so many times practicing.
Yeah, totally. Failing. Well, my problem was the heat base I had on this GTT. I changed torches and everything's changed. But
those are nuts torches.
Yeah,
they're really, really hot.
Yeah, but there was one little small thing that he showed me one day. I can't explain what it was, but just one little thing he did that just like set me off on this journey where it's gone into all my other stuff that I mix, which has cleaned everything else up that I'm making now, and just a perspective of measurements and ratio and proportion. It was really weird, but
wow.
I'm trying to find a way down the road to verbalize it so I can talk about it on the show and do like a little video on this stuff, because like these little small little
I'm interested to hear more.
Texts, it's pretty cool stuff, and it's all about, like, you know, people ask me about, like, when you're making something new, how you figure out how to do it over and over and over again. And it's just like cooking, you know. You got your recipe and your formula, and this is what goes into this.
Yeah.
And it comes out the same way every fucking time. You just got to muscle memory has to be the same. Blah blah blah. You know.
Consistency.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I appreciate getting to share that and to get to sit and watch artists work, and even if you're just watching them, you know. You've been following the Tournament of Fire on Instagram?
I've been following one artist who I really admire named Cool Hand Suze.
Yeah.
I worked in her shop for a while, and she made just an amazing piece. I think it's all clear.
Yeah, it is all clear on the lathe, dude. Like, what the fuck?
You saw it?
Yeah,
you saw it?
Yeah, like what the fuck?
Oh my gosh,
it's ridiculous.
She blows me away. Like just seeing people make art on a lathe and doing the whole kind of back and forth, you know, bench to lathe thing is really cool. I want to get a lathe at some point soon.
Yeah, seeing that kind of process like that, I agree 100%. And that's what I think is also, like you're saying, that
you save yourself. I mean, your body is going to get so beat from this medium if you really want to make what you want to make.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, and the cool thing too with the that Tournament of Fire and watching the live streams is getting to watch the live stream and like learn something in the process. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't watched any of the live streams because I'm really busy these days. But yeah, I mean, I love watching that kind of stuff. And obviously, if Banjo's doing a Devi, I'm usually watching.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of hard to resist. And I mean, like, it's nice that the live streams are saved for, what is it, like 12 to 24 hours or something like that. So
yeah.
You can rewatch it a few times. And I do some live streams myself sometimes, and it's really fun. Just being able to chat with other people and, you know, just this whole new exposure thing is next level.
Yeah, social media has definitely helped out in so many areas with people. It's pretty badass.
I mean, every single day you could live stream and meet somebody who has never seen somebody blow glass, and they're seeing it for the first time on a live, and it's literally like,
yeah, we've been talking about it.
Impactful, right?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely. Like,
because I mean, I didn't know that I wanted to be a glass blower at all. I actually went to Dale Chihuli's gardens and just like the whole entire scene in Tacoma when I was younger, and I mean, I was blown away by Chihuli's work and his whole team and what they were capable of. But I didn't know that I wanted to get into the craft and like be a glass blower or what the process was about.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the work and I was like, holy cow, that is cool. Like, I have no idea how I would ever get into that. And I still haven't touched much soft glass, but now I have much more familiarity with, you know, how Dale might, you know, conduct these pieces. And yeah, his work is amazing. Going up to Tacoma is a real treat. I'll tell you that.
Do you get a chance to go up to the Museum of Glass up there and watch any demos?
Any demos?
Yeah, have you seen any demos there at the Glass Museum?
With hot glass, no. I went up to Pilchuck for a class last summer, and that was amazing. That was like a big leap for me in terms of technical skill and like confidence, I feel like.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I took a class with Matt Eskucki, and Jeff Heath was one of the TAs, and then also Andrew Serto was another TA. So it was just a kick-ass class. I loved it. And Pilchuck is just a wild place. You got to go if you're a young person that can, you know, get a scholarship or afford it or split it with your parents, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place worth going to, despite it being, you know, more expensive than, you know, just renting a bench space and talking to your friends about what they're doing, right?
Yeah, totally. But it's accelerated
or
learning.
even having an apprenticeship. You know, like a class is so much more when, like Jeff Heath, whenever I had a real question, he would come over to my bench and like stop whatever he was doing, and it was, or Andrew or Matt. You know, like I was just talking about Jeff especially because he really taught me a lot about goblet making, and he really, you know, he got behind my torch and used my torch, showed me how he would do it with my torch, my tools, which is, you know, super important. You can't just watch somebody work on somebody else's torch with a pair of jacks and then use your torch that's different with a reamer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
It's
it's fun.
not it's not easy to compare those at all. So I mean, that class was phenomenal in terms of that relationship with the teachers and how you're spending pretty much the whole day with them, eating meals multiple times a day, and they want to help you and they want to see your progression. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, man, it's a cool opportunity nowadays with all this access to knowledge that is out there, especially the fact that these schools are now letting pipe makers do teach classes and stuff and do technical class.
Yeah, I felt really accepted there, and I wasn't really making pipes while I was working there. I was really focusing on goblet making because that was more of what we were practicing. It was Mataskukki's class with pulling points and making these thinner vessels, or
awesome.
You can make whatever you want, but
right.
That thin bubble trash or glass garbage that he makes was what he was displaying and demoing the whole time. And so pipe making wasn't really on the agenda ever. we were doing pipe making techniques in the evenings with Andrew and Jeff a little bit. Like Jeff made a recycler while he was there, and Andrew made a few kind of interesting apparatus pieces that could be assembled into other things, just as demo pieces. And but it was really a classic class where Matt wanted us to pull points. He wasn't super pleased that I would use blow tubes in some cases, because I do enjoy using blow tubes a lot. I'm kind of like a scientific or technician kind of mind, I guess you might say. Okay. So I feel like the pulled point is a little bit more organic, and it's good for a lot of things, like if you're making spoons all day or goblets, and organic bubbles, I think makes a lot of sense, or whatever. But anyways, it was definitely more of a classic based class, because even though those pieces of garbage that he makes are kind of modern, Coke bottles and things, or Sprite cans and these cups and stuff, it's definitely like classic shaping the way he does it, right? And super thin.
Yeah. It's incredible.
So I mean, Matt's just he's an amazing person to watch work.
Man, he's a beast, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah. And watching him crush the things that he makes so perfectly is like almost like heart wrenching and then also beautiful. It's like you see him make this perfectly symmetrical object that is almost like a machine made thing, and then he just crushes it.
And it's such an amazing philosophy and concept too, like in your art, Like when I remember when I first saw him come out,
class,
dude, it's so hyper realistic looking, it's ridiculous.
Exactly. He could do anything, really. He's not even explored at all.
Yeah.
I think he's done Gatorade bottles a couple times.
Huh.
But
yeah, it's cool.
Pretty capable artist.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. Well, back onto you, dude. So, like, what's your current line? Like, what's your, I guess, your perspective and your path that you're on, in a sense, to what your direction you want to go in now?
Sure. Well, I'm definitely trying to not be a one-trick pony, right? As a lot of people preach, and I've definitely heard you preach quite a few times on the show. To get really good at something, you kind of need to be a one-trick pony for that time being, right? Yep. If you're trying to get your technique down, you might have to spend 2 weeks on it. Right?
Dude, I say it's 10,000 hours, like the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah.
I say it's like 10,000 hours of technique.
I think that's different. Like, people can have a misconception that you're a one-trick pony if you're just doing one technique all the time. Like, but yeah. Anyways, I try to diversify these days, whereas in the past I've been trying to just like, I want to get this technique down, and I would do that for months, right? And just kind of spend money on materials, and I wasn't really making money off of glass at that, or in the past for a while. I would say that I've been making money off of glass for like the past 7 months or so. And exponentially gaining more and more sales over time. And but before that, I was really spending money to invest in my education with the medium. And each time I bought a box of tubing or rod, I wasn't really thinking about it like, okay, each one of those 26 mil 4 foot long tubes is going to be this many spoon pipes. I was just like, okay, let's have fun. What can I make, or
Smart.
Whereas now I can really look at a tube and say that's this many pipes, and then this, look at a stack of color or a pound of color and say that's this many pipes or this many pendants, that kind of thing. And it takes a lot of time to get that kind of discipline and sit down behind your bench and not waste a bunch of material because this stuff is so distracting,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like you could just you can just get infatuated by the process and not really think about time. But when you buckle down, you can get your consistency down to like making a pipe or a pendant every so many minutes. And every single day, like I still have to work really hard to keep myself disciplined and not distracted. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing better than ever in that regard. And like, so I've been trying to make just like, whatever comes to my mind that day. And if I have the material for it, I'll make it. And then also I've been doing more customs recently. So online, I do a lot of like quicker, just kind of small sales of a pipe or a small pendant or a bead. And I'll do like dib style or auction style. Sometimes things sell, sometimes they don't. There have been days that have been really, really awesome. And then there are days that, don't really work out at all. And it's kind of confusing with Instagram algorithms.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Tell me about it.
You can get discouraged easily. I'll tell you that. So, you got to just keep trying and, not just limit yourself to that one outlet. Obviously, if you rely on Instagram as your one sales outlet, it's not going to work out for you. But, I'm just trying to diversify and make more styles of pendants. I feel like pendants are something that a lot of people can get down with. Coming from a family that isn't like, smoking or using cannabis recreationally or medicinally, I was never really like even though pipe making is the thing that has allowed me to teach myself the most technical aspects of glass, in my opinion, it seems that like I've been kind of discouraged from making that my main path in sales and my career, which is a good thing. It's just I've definitely kind of held off from like making rigs, and people have like asked for rigs for a couple, or at least like a year from me, and I just kept on saying like I don't really feel like my rigs are where I want them to be, or like I don't have any available. And it was really just like my kind of relationship with my mom and like her not really enjoying seeing that whole thing,
No, I understand.
But I'm totally, a part of the pipe movement, and without pipes I wouldn't be where I am today. And that was what really attracted me to it. Besides, the first exposure I had was pendants and like small jewelry. But once I saw the pipes and I saw that opens up your capabilities in terms of your strength and size, you can't make some giant marble, but you could blow a big bubble, and that's a lot more manageable, right? So, and just hollow sculpture in general, or hollow things can go so much further than just a solid thing. And so, anyways, I've kind of spent a while not selling rigs, and I sold like one rig about a year ago, and since then I've mainly been selling like spoon pipes in like bulk batches of 100 or 10 at least, for them to get a wholesale price. That's kind of my policy if it's a shop, right?
Yeah.
And shops are pretty frustrating sometimes, so I have a bit of a sour taste in my mouth when it comes to shops, even though I've made a decent amount of money and I've been able to progress in the medium because of shops. It's just such a rat race.
It's easy to get jaded after a while. No, totally.
So I've made a lot of spoon pipes and sold a lot of spoon pipes. I feel like that's my most reliable item, and also carb caps, directional flow carb caps are good sellers because they're not necessarily something that takes up a lot of time or material, and I can, sell a set of them for $100, and they feel like that's a pretty sweet deal. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, work with the times. And right now I've got a lot of orders for the rigs I've been making. And I'm kind of feeling more comfortable with being public about, being a pipe maker or a water pipe maker, sculpture kind of artist, rather than just like, I don't know, like trying to hide it in a way.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to explain to people. I mean, like I've always posted pieces like that are smokable on my Instagram, but I've never been trying to show that I'm about the culture, even though I am accepting of a lot of it. And like, I'm really about education. That's what I'm about. I'm not into, burnouts or people who will, waste your time or something. But
yeah, well, like for me too, like I've always kept the culture separate from my art in a sense. Like it's like a separation of church and state, kind of thing. And besides my gig and having kids and stuff, and where I live as well in the state of Florida, but I've always been slightly paranoid about having my shit out there. So I was kind of policy is always separation.
I feel really great about like where I'm going in terms of my water pipe and dry pipe direction, like having fun with it and not really seeing it as just like this functional thing that's going to get someone stoned, I'm really trying to see it as something that could be put on a shelf and viewed as a cool thing to just explore optically, right? Or physically. And, it's tactile and fun to just have in your life. Right.
Yeah, well, it seems like you've had a good evolution, though, man, because you've had like you said, you've taken your time to learn specific techniques. So, like, here you are, years later.
Freaking time, it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but you're becoming, so you're not like a novice, and even though you've been doing this for a couple of years, you're still, you have success and skills, and you're taking classes, so you're, getting this accelerated learning from that. Then you can go home and practice those things,
Yeah, I mean, I recognize there were standards in this medium at a certain point. I was like, wow, like that is a certain way. It's doesn't have wrinkles in it, or that's evened out, that's blown out to a perfect wall. Whereas there was a point in time when I didn't have the eyeballs for that, right?
Yeah, totally.
When I first started out, I couldn't go into head shops and say that's a clean ring seal or that's a this, that's a that. I wasn't savvy with this whole function scene at all. I probably could have, seen that a weld wasn't that great if it was like a horn that wasn't melted in all the way. That's pretty obvious. But, yeah, it takes a while to understand just like what stress is. I mean, and then also like, what's fixable, what's not. Like I had a crack earlier today that I saw the way that it cracked and I knew that it was just not something to worry about. Based off of, like, I could feel that it was not a deep crack. And I fixed it in the kiln in about 2 seconds. Whereas when I first started, I probably would have freaked the heck out and maybe even thrown it out, right? So it's amazing how you see the material differently at a certain point, and you see like that's fixable, or like, oh, I could just bridge up to that, or that may be off axis, but I could get it back on axis this weird way. Like
it's good though, man.
Getting things on axis is freaking hard. I'll say that.
That's why I think pulling points is so important, because it teaches you that muscle memory.
Exactly, dude. I think that's a great point right there.
Like if you can pull points vertical and horizontal, it teaches you so much. But even just holding like a rod out in front of you.
You can feel a point that's straight. It's just so straight.
Oh yeah, totally. Especially when the thickness and diameter of the pole itself is even. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love pulling points. I still do it. Every day. It's depending on what I feel like in that second. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But too, like going back to the crack issues, I've had to learn to like to basically not try to fix something, because I've been so used to like in the back in the day of the rat race and trying to make every little penny count that I had to support my family and pay the bills, etc. Like I'm like, this motherfucker is not going to go in the garbage. I'm fixing this thing. But then like 3 hours later, you waste all this fucking time, and then I got to a point where I understood it's just better to start over, and But
oh yeah, that's another part of it, is recognizing when to stop.
Yeah,
it's like, nope, that's going in the garbage. I'm done with that. I'm going to move on and not trip about it too. It's a big part of it.
Yeah,
just
for
saying,
sure.
Like, oh, I learned from that one.
But I've had to learn this. I've had to learn that same thing in my solid work now too. Like knowing where it's a point to where it's like, okay, like with these characters I'm doing, if the crack is, like some of these pieces, the newest guy on his body alone is like 7 inches of 1 inch size rod, so it's a pretty good gather of glass. And I've had a couple pieces like crack right through the whole fucking thing, and I just know I had to like rip his arms off.
So much glass.
Yeah, it's a ton of glass, dude. But when all his arms and hands and like
Hollow
body
is so
parts
much
are
more
there,
forgiving in that way, or it can be.
Yeah, exactly. But it gets to a point where I'm just like, and it's kind of fun too when I've got a bunch of people watching me and I just take this full entire character I just made and just like toss them in my little bucket that I have, my graveyard on my bench.
You like it?
Yeah, because they're like, the fuck are you doing, kind of thing. And I tell them what's going on about it.
The process, right?
But yeah, exactly. And that's why I tell them, like, sometimes I'm glad you see this because you understand that not everything we make comes out, which is also why we price things at what we price it at. So, gives them appreciation for shit. So yeah, so it's important, but it's that happy medium. It's also like why I don't paint paintings at all because I never really know when to stop. I get to a point where it's just a fucking gray mess.
Totally. I mean, I like to draw black and white. It's pretty fun to me. I feel like it's very minimalist, so you could almost like fill up like a corner of a page in black and white, and it'd be pretty chill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it. Kind of just like roughly sketching it out.
Yeah, but it seems like I was going to say before, with like your technical way of thinking about things, so you have like this, you take a different perspective of detail. So like a lot of things you've been talking about are specific detailed things that not a lot of people are going to catch up on necessarily unless you like to take a class or you're just observant of what it is that you're doing. And I think you've been able to do that because you're investing your time into repeating the process or just working on one specific thing.
Oh yeah, it's like the scrapes and burns and falling off your skateboard thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a BMX biker and a skateboarder and mountain biker, and like got to crash a bunch of times, and it kind of sucks. And then the more time you spend on the bike or on the skateboard, the more you get rewarded from that thing. And it makes you really proud once you've like kind of beaten yourself up, but you've also gotten to a point where you know how to crash, kind of. I think that's a big part of it. It's like you learn how to crash and you feel much more comfortable reacting from those crashes emotionally and physically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like just in every single aspect.
Right. Well, that like it makes me think about like, okay, so you've done BMX and understanding that to learn a trick or whatever, because I did bike myself. I had a BMX as a kid doing the same stuff.
Yeah, and falling hurts.
Yeah, it totally does. But if you're learning this thing, you got to repeat the same thing over and over and over and over again, So like, and when it translates into your glass, I guess my question for you is, do you find yourself that you're more like a technician versus being an artist, or have you found like you're starting to like meld the two together? You know what I'm saying?
Well, like, I mean, if I was like going to build a bike, right? I could build a bike that's like really fancy in like a kind of pleasing way visually. And then it could also be a fun bike to ride that's really, functions well as a nice bike. Or I could, just focus more on the function of that bike and be more of a technician and be like, oh, it doesn't matter what it looks like. I'm just going to be making this really good functioning bike that's kind of raw. So, recently I've been working on these new prototype designs of recyclers, and I try not to invest too much color or time, but I'm also trying to put enough time into it so that I get the design right, so that I get the most out of, the material and the time. And so, I would say it's a huge mix of artist and craftsman, technician. This medium is a beast that will teach you, really. It's like, it's kind of like riding the waves. I've never surfed in my life. I really want to surf. It scares the hell out of me. It's just like going out on the ocean, but I really want to do it. But like, I feel like with glass, a lot of time you're like riding that wave, and like the glass is really teaching you. Once you got the fundamentals, you can like see the way the glass is moving and kind of like talking to you. It's not a conversation. I know that. It's just like, people playing music, and they can really get down with their instruments once they're feeling themselves and feeling.
It's getting that flow state.
Feeling that exactly, yeah, the flow state, or yeah, feeling the groove. And so like I feel like I'm definitely a technician that could like sit down and tell someone like, okay, I'm going to be using these 9.5 millimeter tubes on this part of the the water pipe because it has more restriction on those sections, and that's what I require for this kind of function. Or I could just make that piece, and that's kind of the more artsy way to do it, is just kind of do it.
Yeah.
And or not artsy, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
totally. That's the
there's
creative
this
side.
fleeting kind of like, whenever I draw and make some cool art on paper that you might call art and not craft, I'm kind of just going at it and seeing what happens. And maybe I have an idea of what I want, but like it might not come out perfect. And you have experience with a pen maybe, and I think a big part of it is just like experience and then vision, right? Like if you got some experience with some material or technique and all that, and then you've got a vision, then you're able to execute it a lot better than if you didn't have that technical skill. So like,
yeah, exactly.
I feel like a lot of things in life are, accessible. We could teach ourselves a lot of different things, and I just happen to teach myself glass blowing, and it's like something that is definitely a technician's, or it requires a technician's mentality in many cases. Like if you're working on a car, and you're a car technician, you can't make a lot of mistakes. There's very little room for error, right? Because the life of the car is super important. If the car is not usable at the end of the day, if it's broken or totaled, it's worth just throwing in the garbage, and that's a pretty huge loss, right? And so yeah, I kind of make these metaphors all the time in my life of just like, oh, if I was a plumber, then this, or yada yada, because you gotta think about yourself as a professional. You're glass blowers who are making pipes, despite them maybe having dreadlocks or something.
Mm-hmm.
They got to crunch those numbers, and like they're using this many 26 mil tubes, and it takes that many days, and they do have to think like a technician, like you're saying.
Oh yeah,
but,
I had a
but
distributor.
you can have a lot of fun. Like sometimes I just get a bunch of different colors, and I just kind of go at it. I'm not thinking about it, and art versus craft is just a huge question that so many people have asked, and it's really like a mix of both. I mean, art is something that you kind of stumble upon, and like you might not make that same exact thing all the time. If you make like 100 of that thing, it might not be as artsy or artistic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like
I think one-offs are more special, right? Isn't it cooler to see one of one thing than a whole entire fleet of them?
Oh yeah, and it's more valuable.
That has a whole other value. Like seeing 50 recyclers like Carl Termini is pretty badass. So you see that production and that hard work, that consistency. But if you see one really unique one-off that took a few days or maybe even a year to create, it's a different kind of art feeling.
Like the big collab that just happened out in California.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing.
Jesus,
I was
dude.
going to mention it just because it's just a funny thing. And I mean, I think the supposed value is about $1 million.
Yeah.
$1 million. And I mean, I want to see it go for that. But
me too, bro. It's incredible. Like
there have been people in my shop who have been like, oh, I just don't see $1 million in it. And I'm just like, okay, dude, like, like that's your problem. Like Dale Chihuly is probably making a lot more than that, and he's not necessarily touching the glass every time, or if not at all. So
yeah, not at all anymore.
Really, like, if you want to see this like it's art and stop seeing it like it's this degenerate thing, like a lot of people see it, then you'll see, wow, we can make a ton of money. We can make chandeliers. We can make, I don't know, maybe a coffee table that's, if it's thick enough, right? Yeah. We could do all sorts of things with this medium. Like I think that, if we go to outer space in the future, we're definitely going to require more glass blowers for further research in that kind of way. And maybe pipe makers are going to be a huge part of those discoveries, because some of the best glass blowing technicians, in my opinion, are not necessarily just scientific workers, but also some pipe makers.
Oh, dude, I say it all the time. I think pipe makers are some of the most technical artists in the world with what
they're thinking about it differently. Just like Salt is, he's not a scientific lamp worker, but he's inventing a whole new science of this, and many others. Micah Evans, huge inspiration to me. But yeah. That kind of answer your question, the art versus craft?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was just kind of curious.
Question, man. I think that's awesome. You brought that up.
Yeah, it's because I mean, just think about how your process has been in a short span of time that you've had and the opportunities you've had in front of you. You've obviously taken them, and then you also, but early on, you paid attention to yourself and found, because like I know myself, like say when I was taking pre-med classes in college, like right out of high school, I was drawing
Sure, yeah.
anatomy instead of actually paying attention to the lessons, and I was like, "The fuck am I doing?" So I dropped out of pre-med and started taking art classes before I even got into blowing glass.
Dude, good for you. That's cool.
Because as a kid, I always wanted to be a starving. My dad's always like, "Don't be a starving artist," but I always wanted to be a professional artist. And the glass just happened to be my medium.
Same here. Yeah.
Which is cool. But also too, on the whole art and craft thing, like at work, we always consider like the initial artist proof, quote unquote, to be our actual art piece that we get. The one that's approved in a sense, like if we're doing a character or something like that. And then from that point on, to replicate the process, it becomes science, and like I said about, the whole formulatic equations and trying to figure out how much goes into what, and then you have to deal with ratios and proportions and distances and like all these measurements and shit to make sure everything's on. Like I have a marble for my characters that I make for all their heads, because everybody's got a different head size, and it starts off with a marble, like basically. So I know the consistency and proportion and shit, but it's a lot of scientific stuff, which is part of what I love about the glass so much. Besides the art side of it, so it's kind of cool, to be able to think on both sides of the brain, Like I remember when I was working.
Yeah, you get to exercise the whole brain. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, totally. And talking about with Dale Chihuly, we have, from where I'm from in St. Pete, we have his collection over there, which was the first permanent collection that he ever put out. Yeah, it opened up. I think it was like 8 years ago now, something like that.
Okay.
It's recently moved to a newer location closer to the art center, who actually owns the piece. But it's a $9 million collection of his work. And I was hired on as security, and I did some educational programs and shit, and taught the docents all the information so they can do their tours properly, all that kind of shit. Cool. So it was a lot of fun. But we would have like groups come in, and we had these doctors come in one night, and I swear to God, dude, every one of them, none of them saw the art in there. They were all referring to the glass as like different, anatomical things or shit that they've seen on a slide under a microscope. Just like really interesting perspective, totally different brain, thinking about stuff. And they all just kind of like walk through it really. Like you can walk through the collection quickly as it is, but there's probably 50 people, and they were in and out of that museum area in probably 5 minutes. And they went right next door to the cocktails. They were done.
Oh yeah.
It was
That's
fun.
funny.
Yeah.
That must have been a really epic time, man. Wow.
Yeah, and getting to see the variety of people that came to that place that had an appreciation for Dale Chihuly's work was pretty cool. All walks of life.
I didn't even think about that.
It's interesting.
The different walks of life.
Yeah, all kind of shit. Because it was everything from tourists to glass blowers to art teachers, like all kind of shit. Like when the art teacher, like Pinellas County, which is the county I lived in, all the art teachers would come to the collection because they all did like a field trip there with their students. So I would, every year, like for 3 years that I worked there, I would give them all the updated information and give them walk them through the place, as a tour wise. So it was a lot of fun. I probably knew at the time more about Chihuly than he knew about himself.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's like a full circle from like my early inspirations of glass from him, seeing his Rivers of Glass on PBS bullshit, and then
he seems like a quirky guy.
Oh, dude, we got to hang out with him, and they told us we actually got him on a good day,
No
he
way.
was in a good mood.
That's so cool.
He went to the bathroom, and I was gonna go, and started walking in behind him to go pee next to him and have a conversation, but I was like, I can't. I'll give him a space. But I made a pendant, and I gave it to him while he was there, and he was stoked about it, and we just kind of chit chatted.
Oh, cool, man.
I stood on his eye patch side at first. He was like, "Come over here where I can see you." So walked around the other side, and we just kind of shot the shit for about 20 minutes. So it was cool, man. It was like getting to meet like Da Vinci or something like that, as for a painter or a person who, it's shit for me to be like meeting Da Vinci. Anyways.
Yeah, he had patrons and all that, like making his art happen. Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of artists need to realize, is that there's nothing wrong with asking for help if you do it professionally. You don't need to sound like, hey, give me free cash. You can just say hey, I want to make this really epic project happen. And if you guys want to contribute, then that's cool. And let's make this vision happen, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. Marketing. Yeah, and he's a marketing genius too when it comes to that kind of shit. I
didn't even know that he was doing that. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, like we had a retail store, which is a new thing for them, so they had to come up with all this merchandise and stuff, and we had like basically like coloring kits and paint kits and all kind of books, all the books that he's ever published out there, and prints and paintings. Because like a lot of his work,
Yeah.
he'll paint first with his paintbrush and his basically
I've
broom.
got a book with pictures of him
Cool.
doing that.
Yeah.
With like black ink, right?
Yeah, so we all wore splatter painted
cool.
shoes. Like that was part of our gimmick there.
Yeah.
Was that all of our shoes all had paint on them. Yeah, it was funny.
Cool.
And one of our rooms had a black light in there, so I made sure we all had like glowing colors on our shoes, and we could like walk in there during tours, and our feet would glow and shit. And then we would do charity events and have like people like the local come paint your shoes type thing, and people would come up with their white shoes that they just bought from Target or whatever, and we'd go out there and teach them how to splatter paint them properly or whatever. It was pretty fun. Totally different art experience, in a sense. But it also got me used to talking to people too, so which helped me now with being over at Disney, demonstrating all day, talking to people.
Yeah, you got to get out there. I mean,
oh, it's so important.
The more I get stuck in the cave, the less I learn generally. So.
Yeah, man, that's why I always recommend any glass artist, no matter what level you're at, if you can go out and do any kind of craft show or a fair, or a farmer's market, even if it's like once a month or once every quarter or something, just to get yourself out there, get exposure.
With the customers and see them face to face. See their reactions to your work. I think that's so cool. Whether bad or good or in between, it doesn't matter. It's just so precious, right?
Yeah, it's super important. For sure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I think it'll be a good time for us to take a quick break and thank some sponsors. And then we'll come back and it'll be time for us to crash the kiln.
Cool.
Segment of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by the Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of the Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. This has been accomplished by developing relationships with the finest artists and sharing their techniques with you through in-depth step-by-step tutorials. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make the Flow the leading international lampworking journal. And if you have not yet subscribed to the Flow, you can use the coupon code WISEGUY at checkout, and you can receive 10% off your annual subscription. So just go to theflowmagazine.com. That is theflowmagazine.com. All right, we are back. So the Crash and the Kiln round consists of 7 questions. You can give me a 30 to 60-second answer on them, or you can expound upon the answers as well, as we always tend to do here. And the first question I always like to ask is if there's any living glass artists that you would like to work with and haven't yet. Who is it and why?
I thought about this a little bit. It's really difficult. I guess I want to say either Micah Evans or Laceface.
Okay.
Or Lacey St. George, but probably Micah. I really appreciate his architectural style, and it's influenced my style a lot in terms of kind of seeing the glass as almost like this industrial thing that you can manipulate by hand or on the lathe, and make these really decadent sculptures. Like what he creates, it astounds me. I'm gonna go with Micah Evans. I'd also love to work with Laceface.
Cool. Yeah, dude, Micah's good. Yeah, I agree completely with what you said about and described his work. 100%.
Yeah.
Badass.
And the clear, just working clear, complementing limited color, cheaper, beautiful.
Yeah, he
People
actually his work
glass.
influenced me to get back into working in clear years and years ago when I first started.
It teaches you so much. It's it's the basic material.
Yeah, and you can't get away with shit. You gotta be clean.
You better know what you're doing with your clear.
Yeah. So speaking of clear glass, what are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
All right, on. I guess Mystery Adventuring is a really cool one. It's really hard to pick. I guess Silver Creek and Blood, or Dragon's Blood. You say 3?
5.
Or 5?
Yeah.
5. Dragon's Blood, Blue Thunder, and Jet Black.
Cool. I haven't heard Blue Thunder in a long time. That's a fun color.
I love that color. I use it almost every day.
Yeah, wasn't there a Blue Thunder and then Alaskan Thunder, I think was the other version or something like that?
Yeah, I use both. And I get them in seconds, and I just work them really nice on my Bethlehem and come out freaking fire.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Fuck yeah.
Gotta take advantage of them seconds and them odds.
Oh, dude, yeah. Tell me about it.
I work them well.
Hell yeah. So what's your worst injury in the studio?
So I got 2 answers. The main answer is my sanity, because I mean, how many people work behind a flame for like thousands of hours? It's just not a very common thing that people do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, and it's also like, you know, you're interacting with this radiation that I don't really know what the effect is. So, you know, I have a blast shield, and I think that's great, but the radiation could have some sort of weird effect, and the glass is actually radioactive too. So, besides that, and just, you know, just spending a lot of time in the shop and having to take time to, you know, do other things with your life. I think that's kind of like a handicap that glass blowers get, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say the most like painful physical injury that I got that was pretty dangerous was when I was first learning how to work with glass, probably about a year and a half into it. I was working with my friend Sky, who I told you about at the beginning of the show. And he asked me to break off some punny rods for him because he was bridging a mini tube, like the joint or something like that. And so he was kind of attached to it. He was like in the flame trying to keep it warm. And he was like, "Oh, could you get me some 7-volt rod and break it in half and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem, Sky." And I broke it in half. And at the time I guess I didn't know how to break this solid rod in half very correctly. I now know that you want to put your arms far apart, you know, and put your hands as far away from each other and press your chest into it, and kind of give it a chest bump if you want to crack it that way.
Uh-huh.
Unless you're using like a hot rod or something to crack it, or in like water quenching it. But anyways, I put my hands right next to each other after scoring it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You know, right next to each other, right next to the score mark. And I broke the punny, and one of the punnies went straight into the web between my thumb and my forefinger, or my pointer finger, and just kind of gouged straight into the web. And it really messed with my nerves in my hand. And I felt like I couldn't really work for a good probably 3 months, maybe 2.5 months. And my hand was just really, really weak. But besides that, it was just this pretty gnarly flesh wound that was like a 1/2 inch wide. But I actually didn't get stitches because I don't know, just didn't, and I probably should have.
Yeah, probably.
And I've done that twice. The other time I can't recall why it happened, but I've done that same exact thing twice, and it hurts so dang bad.
Dang.
Punnies are so sharp. Same with, you know, those little fingernail chips on the end of punnies or tubing. Those will get you. And I've actually, another thing is I've gotten, sorry to, you know, keep going, but like I've gotten like a little chip of glass in my eye before, and that put me out for a week, and I wasn't stoked on that.
Jesus.
I was able to see and all that, but it really freaked me out because I could feel it hit my eye when it happened.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had a piece blow
my
up.
eye was pretty bloodshot for a week.
Oh no shit! I had a piece blow up like
punny.
that, and right my
Yeah.
eye. I had my glasses on too, and it went over my lens, and then somehow it
Yeah,
got
me too.
tucked into
I don't
my
know
bottom
how.
eyelid.
Jeez, yeah, and I've got some pretty protective glasses, so maybe I was like kind of peeking over them. I do that quite a bit when I'm just working, and you got to see the heat base or whatever. So yeah, watch out for punnies, guys.
Yeah, fuck.
Jesus.
Let's see, injuries. So when you're in the shop, you listen to the radio, watch the tube, or do you do both?
I listen to podcasts. I like educational podcasts a lot. I just recently started listening to Sam Harris. He's a pretty great guy to listen to. I like to listen to the IPCC report, like learning about the environment, as long as I'm not feeling too negative about the environment that day.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to listen to news, I'll listen to news or listen to commentary on philosophy and things like that. But I feel like when you're getting that flow state going, music is great. It really, like, I can make flow state kind of initiate, as you might say, with a nice podcast going, but the music kind of, it keeps you at that rhythm state. And yeah, glass blowing is very rhythmic. I believe Robert Mickelson said that glass blowing is all this balanced rhythm and timing, and I think that's relatively true. If you break it down to those three things, and balanced rhythm and timing all relate to music. And so if you're kind of beating your feet to the beat and sinking in a heat bass into a bubble or something, you kind of take your time more rather than just sitting there and not really feeling it. I think that getting into it and like really dancing is really fun. So
yeah,
definitely music. And I'll watch Scooby-Doo sometimes when I'm just having fun. I'll even like make a rig. We'll watch some Scooby-Doo, and it's pretty fun.
Oh,
but
yeah. That's a pretty specific show to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I love that freaking show, man. It's an awesome show.
Hell yeah. Is it like the modern version of it, or is it old school?
No, I like the Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? That's
yeah.
just one show. I've noticed that one's a good one to watch because I've seen all the episodes, and I'm not really into movies as much because I think that's something I want to pay attention to a little bit more. So, yeah, I'll put on a cartoon like that, or like Bob's Burgers is a pretty good show. I like that one. It's pretty funny.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, and besides that, mostly podcasts and music, or silence. I do like white noise, or, just listen to the fan.
Yeah, me too.
Relaxing.
Yeah, it's interesting,
Yeah.
right?
Listening to the glass melt.
Yeah, exactly. Your hair on your knuckles singeing.
Yeah, in your time.
Yeah, exactly. Just melting away.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah. So you have any glass blowing themed tattoos?
I actually do. That's funny. Didn't think about it till now. But the one tattoo I have is on my right bicep, and it's a droplet with that basic kind of dark green tattoo color that everybody uses. I forget what that kind of color is called, but it's like the general dark green as the outline of the droplet. And then in the droplet is a flame that is like faded from a dark blood red to kind of an orange amber at the top of the flames. And I got it from my friend who does stick and pokes at college, one of my good friends, and they did just an amazing job making this little droplet. And it wasn't really specific, like, oh, it means this or it means that. It's just like, I'm attracted to flames and to water and like amorphous, liquid motion, all that. It's like, it all just makes sense to me. And like, I don't know what other kind of tattoos I might get if I ever do get another tattoo. I haven't really had any interest since that one tattoo, but
Okay.
Yeah, definitely got one tattoo.
Awesome. And they did like the old school style doing tattoos.
Yeah, it was a stick and poke, and I loved it. I'm intimidated by like going into a tattoo shop. I'm not really not like I don't think the culture is cool or something. I don't like the sound of the gun or whatever, and like it's kind of like going to the dentist to me. It's like this weird like kind of sterile place, It was cool just like hanging out at my friend's house and just talking to my friends and listening to music and laying down and having her make their art, and it felt really therapeutic actually, because I don't know, it wasn't necessarily a bad part of the body to do it. I've heard that like behind the ear is supposed to be very painful.
Yeah,
because it's like direct bone, or on your foot, right? On your ankle,
a lot of nerves.
So I mean, yeah, I felt like it wasn't so bad, but I'm not necessarily a good person to ask like, hey, should I get a tattoo? Is it that painful? Because I mean, it only took like an hour.
Yeah, it depends where they are.
Or maybe 2 hours with shading and everything. I mean, they did an amazing job kind of blending the color together. I was really impressed in seeing like their artistry, and I like just being like, oh, like I want a red, but like I want it to be looking like fire. So like, mean, fire isn't just one color red. And they were like, oh, I totally get what you're saying. It was awesome.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get a tattoo done like that, just as that technique wise. I've always had an appreciation for it.
Like hand done or like blended.
Well, no, the stick and poke technique.
Yeah, dude, it was really neat. I mean, yeah, they mixed the color right then and there in front of me, and it was just very intimate, for sure.
Yeah. And for me, like, personally, because I have got a ton of work done, I love the sound of the tattoo machine. Like, sometimes if I
oh yeah,
like, I'm jonesing for a tattoo, I can't watch the TV shows at all. Like, I just hearing the sound of it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm addicted to it, I guess.
I think I've heard that before. That people do typically enjoy things like that. My sister has a couple tattoos, and she definitely enjoyed them a lot.
Yeah, for me, it's not even the pain aspect. It's definitely a meditative process.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree, man.
Hell yeah.
You got a couple of tattoos yourself, huh?
I got too many to keep track of. I got like 2, like bicep, upper arm sleeves.
Cool.
I guess you call it half sleeves.
That's cool, man. Do you have any glass ones?
Yeah, I've actually got my Carlisle. It's
oh, dude, that's cool.
Turned into like a little spaceship. It's got like a little alien sit inside of it with like a dome over it and shit.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, the guy did a full detail, like did the knobs and everything. It's pretty badass. And then like it's flying backwards, so like the torch itself is like the back rocket coming at, shooting it across space. And then he's did like this I got this black hole in my inner arm that's going from that piece into my bicep, like it's this big cosmos of glass kind of sucking everything into my bicep.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Are you gonna add to it?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, I'm gonna go onto my chest with it. I'm just not sure what yet. Like I'm not gonna go past my elbows just for sake of work, because I have to wear long sleeves. I roll my sleeves up, but still, I'd rather not have to wear anything longer. And like one of the guys I work with, he has to wear long sleeves, and one of his left arm goes over his hand, so he wears like a Kevlar sleeve over his hand like all fucking day.
Yeah, it gets pretty hot.
Yeah, it's crazy. But whenever I see him out of work, I'm like, yeah, dude, I forget you're covered in fucking ink. It's pretty badass. It's like seeing doctors after they get off work and they're covered in ink. People that come to Disney to see us blow glass, they're like thinking we're all super conservative and our hair's all done nice and blah blah blah. We're all dappered up and shit. And I got to work and I'm like flip flops and cut off shorts.
Huge respect to you guys. You guys make some very impressive work. Like, hats off to all of you.
Yeah, man.
You guys
thanks.
are putting out some impeccable craft right there. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. It's fun. But enough about me, man. Get back on track here. Last question is: what are your top 5 favorite tools besides your torch and your kiln? And
that's a good question. Let's see here. I'm just gonna think about like what I use the most. So I do have a pair of nice jacks, but I don't really use, or like tweezer jacks, but I don't really use them that much. I use a square reamer from Griffin Glass all the time, because I use 9.5 tubing or 10.2 tubing, and to get into those smaller tubes, it can be kind of hard with one of the more worn out reamers that I have. Like a more rounded off reamer.
Yeah.
Can't really get into a tiny tube. So yeah, that Griffin Glass square reamer is an awesome reamer if anybody's looking for a dope reamer. It kind of gets the same effect as jacks, because it's those 2 points as edges hitting. But yeah, that square reamer. I guess a flat paddle. Yeah, I mean, the glass is pretty dang nice as a tool. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like a lot of time, I really am just using that reamer and the glass. I think those are the two. It's kind of hard to say anything else is my favorite. The other things I feel like I could do without, and they're kind of just like add-on things that I don't need.
Do you use a hand torch?
Oh, hand torch. Yeah, I'll say that. That's my other tool. I use that, and it's kind of like having a freaking, it's like having a torch coming out of your hand. So
yeah, I love it.
Next level. I feel like this crazy alien sharpshooter kind of cowboy with my Gen-Tech nowadays, and I just got a Gen-Tech recently, and I love it. It's got a blast shield, 6-hole, which is really, really effective. It's almost like having a tiny lynx, and so I can get like vitrification off of stuff really easily with it, and
nice.
it's just so precise and really, really hot. Thanks for reminding me though. Yeah, mini torch and that square reamer. Then I'll say a paddle. You got to have a paddle for flattening stuff. I mean, I couldn't do it without a paddle. That's for sure. Do you do any kind of sculpture at all? Like, do you have any tools you use for that kind of stuff? I actually just got a nice butter knife yesterday. I've probably tried sculpting, rolling and carving into glass, a handful of times. I want to get into it, but I'm more of like a function kind of before form at this point. I like to make something really functional and then make some cool ways, like patterns or decorations for it to stand out. But I don't have necessarily like a voice in my sculpture yet, and I have a few ideas of characters that I really want to do. Like I was telling you, I like Scooby-Doo, and I like just kind of like all the people in Scooby-Doo are just like weirdo people that are like villains and stuff. I'd like to explore doing people like that, like vampires and just like weird, just kind of cartoony stuff, but not stuff that like everybody else is doing. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I understand. I want to do witches. That's another thing, like witches holding little witch hats and like a broom. I've always wanted to do a little witch. I thought that'd be fun. I really want to get into sculpture. So that's why I got the butter knife yesterday, and got a spoon yesterday too. Because I heard you say on the show that you use a spoon, and I have yet to use it, but I've got a big old chunk of beeswax and a nice spoon. So hell yeah! Is that what kind of handle does it have? Try it out. Does it have a round handle to it, or is it flat? It's flat. Like, you mean like the way that it fits in your hand? Yeah, because like my handle for my spoon itself is it's like a typical spoon is, or silverware wise, they have a flat handle. This one has actually like a kind of an oval shape, rounded handle, so it's got a thick consistency to it. So you can actually like use it for, if you want to roll it in your hand, that's what I'm trying to say, or use it for really doing corners and curves. Oh, I know what you're saying. I actually do have a spoon like that, and I should take that out. Yeah, like I have another spoon just for eating. That does have a round handle. Yeah, that's ideal. Like that. I know what you're saying. Because a flat handle, more fluid motion. Right? Yeah, totally. Because with the flat handle, when you're rolling around. Yeah, exactly. Carving, that's sick. Otherwise, you're using your wrist. That's a great tip. Yeah, rounded handle. That's a great idea. And then you can use it for pressing and pulling and digging, and I mean, there's all kind of shit you can do. Yeah, I feel like it'd be a really good tool for lips. Oh, it totally is. Like when I do my Olaf, like when his mouth is opened up in a sense, and I build like the top, like I had like the basic shape for his head, which is like an ice cream cone with an ice cream scoop on top, and then I'll add the glass like for the top of his mouth. That's because his mouth is open, so and he's got his little carrot nose on there, and then once I add that glass in consistently, I'll heat up the area that would be, which is the part front of his face that will be the opening of his mouth basically. And I just take my spoon and just drag that glass down, and I'll heat it up and do it one more time, and then melt in that little area where it creates a lip. So do you hold the spoon kind of upside down? Yeah, exactly. His face was right side up. Yeah. When you're carving, so because he's smiling, or his mouth's kind of opened up, like he's got this kind of smile look on his face, right? Yeah, and then like the top of that, once I get the bottom lip done, I then use like the convex part of the spoon to then give his bottom inside of the top of his mouth. It's got a concave shape to it, like the roof of your mouth. You know what I mean? So that spoon works perfectly for that kind of shit. It's funny because the spoon is literally meant to fit the inside of your mouth. So if you're ever trying to make that shape, right? Like and it's funny, bro. I never put that in context like that. Cobra or something. See, and that's what I like about how you think, dude. Because like your brain works that way. I've never put that in context, thinking about it like. Of course, it's gonna make a great mouth because it's designed for the mouth. I never thought about that. It's pretty common. Yeah, because the inside of the mouth it's kind of like a retainer. Or something. Yeah, totally. It makes total fucking sense. Spoon shape. Yeah. Yeah, I like your perspective. I dig that shit. Thanks, dude. Yeah, got to keep on thinking different things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, thanks for the spoon recommendation. I never would have thought of that. Yeah, absolutely. Hell yeah. Cheers to you, man. So, man. So before we let you go here, if you want to give us some parting piece of advice, and then where we can find your ass out there in cyberspace. Sure, yeah. Parting piece of advice. You know, practice this craft as much as you can. But, you know, also have you know, balance in it, and the more balance you have with this craft, the better you're going to feel with it, and the better your work's going to come out. So yeah, be intentional with everything you do with this medium, and or be more intentional rather than less. And I think that this medium can do a lot for us. So yeah, I guess just be conscious and, you know, work hard, be careful, and stay humble. Definitely.
Yeah. Well said, man. And that the key to all that, what you said, is about being conscious and making every move count. Like,
think about your surroundings, both your people around you and how you're treating your people, and then also how you're treating the glass.
Yep.
You know, it's all really relevant here. You know?
Yeah, man. Glass translates into life in so many ways. I love it.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more, man.
Hell yeah. So where can we find you out there in cyberspace?
Oh yeah. So my Instagram is Louden LOUDON_glass, and I do have an Etsy, and I believe it's the same name, but I haven't posted on there in a while. So
okay, I'll make sure.
Let's just stick with the Instagram, I guess.
Okay.
As a link.
Well, I'll stick a link in the show notes for your Etsy page too.
Yeah, I think it's the same name. I honestly haven't gone on there in quite a couple months. I should. But yeah, Louden_glass, and that's my last name. It's Scottish, and it's pretty easy choosing that name.
yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Cool, man. We'll hang on until after the outro here. We'll say our goodbyes off the air.
Sounds good.
But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. We kind of rambled and went all kind of different directions, but I think the whole kind of clear perspective of what I've taken from this myself is, you know, being mindful about what you're doing and just taking one step at a time and just being patient, and it all pays off in the end, as it has for you. I mean, you know, getting ready to take this whole thing on full time. That's part of what I wanted to bring up earlier. Is you do have a job currently, correct?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Something like
but I'm also I'm in a position where I'm getting a lot of orders and a couple of distributors that are keen on having me, you know, work for them every single month. So I'm pretty much in transition to full time here. That's how I view it.
Awesome. Yeah. I meant to
pretty
bring that up earlier.
Exciting time for me, but you know, spending 6 to 7 days of the week in the studio or at the post office, and yeah, it's a life, and it's a hustle, and I love it.
Well, it's cool, man. Timing. I mean, I never, we're gonna say goodbye, but I'm still gonna go on here. I don't give a fuck, whatever. So, you know, you start 2005, and here you are 3 years later, and it takes about 5 years to get yourself established in anything, you know. And because of the path that you've chosen to take, and investing in yourself, and the time that you spent, more or less throwing shit in the garbage, but you're practicing technique.
Oh yeah.
You know, in 3 years, you got to a point to where, hopefully, if this works out for you, in 5 years, you will be a full-time professional glassblower, you know, and living that life you want to live. It's fucking awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, cheers to that, man. I mean, I'm humbled to say that that's a realistic future for myself, and you know, every day I'm just going to keep on working to make that realistic.
Yeah. But because you had a job,
you got to put in the time, and every single day counts. That's for sure.
Yeah, totally. But that whole thing about having a job, like it's so easy to just say, "Fuck it, I'm just going to be a full-time glassblower," and then the reality.
Yeah,
I've
had to wean myself off slowly. I mean,
totally.
There's no diving in deep for no reason, all at once.
But the good thing too about that, man, that slow transition is again what you've been doing this whole time. You know, so you get to start learning the business side of shit. You get to learn how to, you know, whether you're doing it or not. But the fact is that you now have the opportunity to slowly begin to learn how to run a business. So when you do go full time, you already more or less have that skill set too, because it takes practice and repetition.
And the work is more sellable too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Like I'm not trying to be unprofessional in my marketing and my business transactions, and then also sell something that's not worth what it's worth.
Oh, so, dude, the worst things I've ever done in my life.
It's good to be comfortable and really know that something is worth,
Yeah, well,
selling at that price,
it's even the fact that you don't
whether
make
it's a
the
service
shit.
or a product.
Yeah, exactly. Because like some of the worst things I've done in my career as a glassblower was taking on orders on things that I had no business trying to fucking make, even though I'm like, I can do that, sure. And then in the end, I have a pile of glass 3 or 4 different times, and then before I know it, the piece is going to the person for free, more or less, once I finally learned how to make it.
Yeah, and
So.
I mean, if you talk to some of these baller artists that, travel around, sometimes it can be kind of trippy because, like, they don't really understand why it's hard for other artists, if that makes sense, And, I mean, it is possible for everybody, or for a lot of us, to make a lot of money in this medium, but it's also, it takes that hustle and that perfect timing of, like, making that kind of piece with that aesthetic and people seeing it at that show or whatever. And so the people with that momentum in the market do, I think, struggle to understand our perspective. The people who are making really, their best work that they can and trying to put the right price on it and also survive, right? So
yeah, it's tricky. It's a definite game.
Because I would love to just make one piece one night and then, not have to work for a few months. Not that I don't want to blow glass for a few months, but it'd be freaking nice to just take a vacation, right?
Yeah.
This stuff is nonstop, especially when you're coming up. And I feel like the more established you are, it's almost like the more time you can take off. Not that all the established artists do take time off. A lot of them are just taking every single day on that torch, right? But
yeah, but it gets to a point where seasons do. Like, I know hot shop artists that they've got to a point where they can take off the summertime.
Or a whole year even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Lino D'Aglio Petra or something does that. I'm not sure.
It's smart. It's the way to go.
I agree. I mean,
but
just to refresh your mind, and, like, I want to travel and, like, see art from different perspectives, go to South America, go to Europe, everywhere, right?
Yeah.
See all these different craft perspectives and cultural perspectives that could, make my thought process with this stuff and all sorts of other endeavors different, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I think is so cool about this medium. We can all be, whether you're in Japan or or
it teaches
Russia.
You to travel.
Yeah, we just
or
talk.
Can teach you to travel. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
allow you to travel.
And we all communicate through our glass, whether you speak the same language or not.
Yeah, and kind of like I'm Jewish. Like you can have like a glassblower friend almost in every big city in the United States. So it's like you can kind of travel around and have a friend and like a community, and somebody might be able to help you out in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's pretty epic. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, cool, man. I'm done rambling. So.
Cool. Yeah, I got to get back to work, and I'm getting pretty hungry here.
Awesome.
I'm eating dinner, but it's a real pleasure talking to you, Jason.
Yeah, likewise, dude. Hell yeah.
And hope to reconnect soon, whether over message or on the phone or whatever.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm gonna do a quick outro real quick. Hang on, so I gotta tell you about the whole. Me giving you the information for the show.
Okay.
For a post out. So all right, cool. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Noah, and definitely go check out his Instagram. I'll have all the links in the show notes, including his Etsy page. Now, he hasn't put something on there for a long time, so maybe one of y'all could go buy something from his Etsy and get him motivated to start using that thing again or whatever. And so I know it's about 125,000 degrees out there in all these states across this country and probably all over the world, depending on where you live. So make sure you're staying hydrated, taking breaks. If you're working at night, good for you. I don't know how you do it, but do what you got to do, I guess, when it comes down to it. And anything else, hit me up on Instagram at wiseguy_radio, or you can send me an email at wiseguy@gmail or wiseguyradio. No, the fuck is my email? Wiseguymedia. That's what it is. Wiseguymedia@gmail.com. And until next time, we'll talk to you on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Y'all take it easy. Peace.